Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lisa Jacobson. I'm the president of the Business Council for Sustainable Energy, and it's really a pleasure to be here in partnership with the U.S. Green Building Council to host another discussion as part of the Business and Industry Bingo Day at COP22. The focus of the discussion is business plans and the NDCs, nationally determined contributions, and how they transform the power sector paradigm. We've got some excellent panelists, and I will introduce them in a moment. But just in terms of context setting, the U.S. Green Building Council and the Business Council for Sustainable Energy have been proud and long-standing participants in the climate change process. And we were proud and pleased to see the rapid entry into force of the Paris Agreement. It's critical, as the focus of this COP is, to translate the hope of the Paris Agreement into reductions needed to achieve the long-term goals. At this side event, business and policy leaders will discuss how to transform the NDCs into clean energy action plans. Panelists will offer their perspective on how low-carbon development pathways can help address the common goals of increasing energy productivity, addressing climate resilience, deploying more low-carbon electricity, increasing the efficiency of buildings and homes in our cities, and making the electric grid smarter. I'd like to introduce our panelists. They will each take a few minutes to share some overview comments with some slides to accompany their remarks, and then we'll move into a moderated discussion. And our hope is to have plenty of time for questions from the audience. So please be thinking about those questions, and we would be very pleased to have that dialogue with you. So in terms of our speakers, our first speaker will be Kateri Callahan, president of the Alliance to Save Energy. And Kateri brings more than 25 years of experience in policy advocacy, coalition building, organizational management, and really the face of energy efficiency globally. So she will share her perspectives on some of the work that the Alliance to Save Energy has been doing on energy productivity, and share best practices and other ideas to turn those NDCs into action. Next, we will hear from Elizabeth Beardsley, Senior Policy Counsel at the U.S. Green Building Council. Liz manages key international partnerships for USGBC and leads efforts at federal, state, and local policy levels, including the integration of buildings and climate mitigation. Next, we will hear from Kathy Woolen, Senior Vice President of Senior Vice President for Environmental Issues and Chief Environmental Counsel at Berkshire Hathaway Energy. She's responsible for the development and implementation of the company's worldwide corporate environmental policy, strategy, and programs. And I believe today she'll be focused on the broad array of technologies of Berkshire Hathaway's interests, in particular, renewable energy. So good to have you with us. Next, we will hear from Harry Vahar, Head of Global Policy and Government Affairs for Philips Lighting. Harry also has been a world expert on energy efficiency in building, focused on the lighting sector, and he's responsible for strategy, outreach, and stakeholder management on energy and climate change, resource efficiency, and sustainable development for Philips Lighting. And our final speaker, I'm looking forward to hearing from, will give a local and municipal perspective. A.K. Singh, Executive Director Electrical for Delhi Metro Rail Corporation. So we have a mix on the panel of industry pioneers and leaders in the clean energy development space. We have local government perspectives, and we have organizations that work to bridge the gap between the public sector and the private sector and local communities. So it should be an excellent discussion, and I thank the panelists in advance for their participation. I wanted to just make a few opening comments before I turn it over to Kateri Callahan. The Business Council for Sustainable Energy, one of the hosts of this event, is a US-based trade association. We work in the areas of energy, environmental policies. We've had a state focus, we've had a national focus in the United States, and we've had a long-standing focus on international climate and energy development. and in particular, a focus on the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and its subsequent agreements. Part of the work of the Council is to tell the story of the clean energy transformation that has really reshaped our U.S. energy sectors. And part of that work is chronicled in a product that we commission each year called the Sustainable Energy in America Fact Book. I raise this in this discussion today in part to share what the U.S. experience has been and to showcase that rapid change, but more importantly, to say that it can be done. We can achieve very significant greenhouse gas and carbon emissions while maintaining a positive economic, competitive posture and to create many new jobs in new sectors. So I invite all of you to take a look at the Sustainable Energy in America Fact Book. We have a standalone website for it off of the Business Council for Sustainable Energy's website. And it's just a treasure trove of information related to different industries and sectors making a difference in the US energy landscape. These are just some of the snapshots from the resources that you can find, again, all for free online. Kateri is going to talk about many of the issues related to energy productivity in detail, but I wanted to just take at the highest level a moment to share with you what the US has experienced. In the last decade, we have seen a dramatic shift in the way the US produces, consumes, and delivers electricity. We have become lower carbon, and much of that is due to increased use of energy efficiency, renewable energy, and natural gas resources and technologies. This chart here really says it very clearly. Our economy is becoming more productive, and in the report that we released just this year on the topic, we were able to point to data that shows that 60% of that is due to investment and activity in energy efficiency in the United States. Again, at the highest level, as I mentioned, this change has been sweeping and really watershed. And the data that we presented this year in the fact book shows that very clearly. For a set of industries that hadn't moved very much in almost 100 years, just in a very few years, we've seen dramatic shifts in the fuel mix. And that's what this chart is showing. We're currently, at the end of 2016, we almost have doubled since this chart was first put up in 2008, our renewable energy generation. We've dramatically increased our generation in natural gas, and we've significantly reduced our coal power generation. We've done that without increasing wholesale or retail power prices. This is looking at the power sector. So this chart here has a lot of detail, but the big takeaway is that we are well below a peak that we had in 2008 in terms of our wholesale power prices around the country. And on the retail side, while it's a little more muted, we also have seen that making these shifts in energy efficiency and cleaner generation has not put an economic burden on our businesses or our households. Finally, the private sector, and that's what this day is all about, is much more involved in making energy management choices, whether that be in energy efficiency for their facilities or their processes, or taking advantage of lower cost renewable energy or other clean generation sources. And this chart here is just showing a very few of the hundreds of companies that have moved into this marketplace. And over the last 2 years in the United States, corporate involvement in energy purchases has doubled twice over, and we only expect this to rise. So in thinking about this conference, these next 2 weeks, and thinking about what we all need to do to make the NDCs actionable, the private sector is going to be increasingly a large player, and we need to forge partnerships. And I believe that will be a big theme in the conversation we're about to have today. So thank you all. And now I would be pleased to turn it over to Kateri Callahan.
Thank you very much, Lisa, and I really appreciate the invitation to be here. Good afternoon, everyone. I represent the Alliance to Save Energy, which is a nonprofit organization based in Washington, D.C. We have been around actually for 39 years. We're going to have our 40th anniversary next year. We were formed as a result of the oil embargo and the first energy crisis in the U.S. And we have a very unique, I think, mission and very singular mission of advancing energy efficiency. And since we're at the COP, I would say the first reason that we do that is for the environmental benefits that accrue, but we also spend a lot of time looking at the economic, the energy security, and the energy reliability benefits. I'm getting terrible feedback. We can't turn these mics off, so I apologize, folks. It's maybe if we did this. Is that better? Is that better? Good. Okay. I hate that reverberation. But we spend a lot of time looking at the economic benefits, the energy security, and the energy reliability benefits of being more energy efficient in our operations. And because that has a lot of appeal across all political spectrums and also in the private sector. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about energy productivity, which Lisa teed up very nicely for me. We see that as the first fuel, energy efficiency, the first fuel for meeting the NDCs, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why. Just a couple words about the Alliance to Save Energy. I said that we are an NGO, but we're unique in that space in that we have strong participation by corporations. This is just a sampling of the 125 organizations and companies that support and help us to advance our mission of energy efficiency. I'm very pleased to tell you today that we have one of our illustrious board members in the audience with us. Bill Sisson of UTC is joining us here today. But these folks really are the backbone of the Alliance to Save Energy and give us a lot of the influence and the cachet that we have, not just in Washington, D.C., but in the work we do around the world. So Lisa asked me to talk about energy efficiency in terms of the NDCs. This is work that you probably have seen by the International Energy Administration. That top blue line on the chart that you see is what the NDCs gets us in terms of reductions in CO2. What happens beneath that, this NDC scenario, is what we need to do in order to keep warming below 2 degrees Celsius. And if you look at this, that orangish chart piece of it shows that IEA is projecting that 49%, nearly half of what we need to do to keep 2 degrees below, the temperature rise below 2 degrees Celsius, half of that needs to be done in terms of investment in energy efficiency. It's the most cost-effective approach. It's the quickest applicable strategy, and we see this as something that the countries, whether you're developing or developed, really need to focus on. So it's not just a strategy for meeting the NDCs, but also a strategy for going beyond NDCs, and we have a lot of evidence to support that in doing that, you also can return a lot to the economy in terms of dollars and jobs. It's not shifting, Lisa. Can you try to see if you can? Where you want me to be? Just the next slide.
So you're not in sync with this?
No, this is not going any. It's stuck.
We'll fix it. Don't worry.
Okay, well, while she's fixing it, let me just proceed on. This is a little challenging today, but we're up for it. I'm over my jet lag. So one of the things that we've done in the United States, and we're working with partners on this around the world, is to put energy efficiency into that economic productivity, that energy productivity frame that Lisa mentioned. As we become more energy efficient, and Lisa showed you a nice chart on this, and I'm going to try to show you one in a minute, we actually are decoupling the growth in energy consumption from the growth in the economy, and that is very important. What that means for developing countries is if you apply a strategy of becoming more energy productive, using energy efficiency, you can actually work on those very important goals of providing energy access to all, of increasing prosperity, growing economies, all while you are still working toward meeting the commitments that you make on your NDCs. And I'm going to show you some evidence of that in what we found in the United States. Again, if I can get some pretty pictures up to show you that. So what is energy productivity? We've been bandying that about. Maybe it's worth giving a pause. Energy productivity is a measurement of the amount of GDP per each unit of energy consumed. So again, as you become more energy productive, it means that you either continue or increase the amount of GDP that you are producing, but you're doing that using less energy. And the way to get you to be more energy productive is investments in energy efficiency. So energy productivity, at least for us in the United States, has put, okay, is it working now? Okay. So we're going to catch up here. So This is the definition, just so you can see a visual of it, of what energy productivity is. So it measures the economic benefits of energy efficiency. It's a much bigger frame, a broader concept than energy efficiency. And what it allows us to do is to focus on value creation and growth, and focus on positive output-focused benefits to the economy as well as to our environment. Here's what's happened in the US over the course of time. Lisa showed you the reason our charts look different is hers was like about a 7-year snapshot. This snapshot goes from the late 70s through the year 2030. So the green bar that you see going up and up and up is the increase in energy productivity in the United States over the course of the last 40 years. And what we did was to double our energy productivity. So in 40 years' time, we were producing twice as much GDP for each unit of energy we consumed. Our Energy Information Administration has said that just on a business as usual, just with the energy efficiency policies that are in place as of their dateline, which is about 2012, we will increase energy productivity by another 57%. So we have articulated at the Alliance a goal of doing better than that, and that's the top red line. We believe that we can once again double energy productivity in the United States if we focus on putting in place energy efficiency policies that are already in place in states, in other states, and across the nation. So we believe this is an audacious goal, but certainly one that's attainable. And what happens if we do this? And this is what I wanted to show you folks who are looking at NDCs and what your strategy should be there. If we succeed in doubling energy productivity, so making our economy run better, we are going to take our emissions to a third below where they were in 2005. So in effect, by 2030, we will exceed the commitment that Obama has made. And while we're doing that, we're going to pump $327 billion back into our economy and create 1.3 million new jobs. So it really is a strategy that is a win-win-win. As I said, we're working on this strategy with other partners around the world and to try to see this thought leadership of putting energy efficiency into that economic, that energy productivity framework, to have other people around the world start to look at, if we invest in energy efficiency, what are the collateral benefits beyond just meeting our NDCs? And I think once people begin to focus on that, there's going to be a rush towards using energy efficiency as the key strategy for meeting those commitments. Lisa mentioned how important the corporate side is. I couldn't agree with her more. We are working with the climate group, and we mean business, to engage corporations, large corporations around the world, in an effort to demonstrate that on the corporate side, we can double energy productivity as well and show what that can do to the bottom line for them. So we have an analog, if you know about RE100, which are corporate commitments to go to 100% renewable energy to power their systems and their facilities and plants. This is the analog to that. This is Energy Productivity 100, meaning that these companies that participate in this are going to double their energy productivity within a certain time frame. So we're really pleased that we have a number of key companies representing all of the major regions of our interest in this: China, India, Europe, and the US. And we invite more. If you're out in a corporation, Karen Hughes is here. She runs this program for us, and we would love to sign up others. We will be announcing at least one new participant in this effort in the COP this week. So that's really all I wanted to say to just kind of tee it up today, and hopefully there'll be a lot of questions and a lot more time to talk about how we actually doubled our energy productivity in the US on a basis of energy efficiency policy. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, Terry, and thanks for your patience with the technical issues. Pull yours up, Liz, and then the floor will be yours.
Great, thank you. And thanks, that was an excellent overview, Kateri, and it's encouraging, I think, to all of us to really look back and see how much progress has been made. We just need to keep this up. So thank you. Thank you all for being here this afternoon. The U.S. Green Building Council is a nonprofit organization committed to a sustainable and prosperous future. And we have over 12,000 business and organizational members and a growing network around the globe of over 200,000 green building credentialed professionals. We are best known for our flagship Green Building Rating System, LEED, and LEED is now used in over 160 countries. We're certifying 1.85 million square feet daily. And LEED V4, our latest version of the rating system, aligns even more with climate action, and over a third of the points in LEED are directly tied to reducing buildings' contribution to climate change. So this has really been a tool that corporations and governments alike are using to reduce their climate impact from buildings. And we have an increasing global impact. As we look at our registered projects in the pipeline, over half of those are now outside of the United States. So we're engaged in supporting countries around the world in building their green building infrastructure through education, networks, and examples. We're expanding our tools as well to respond to current needs. And I'm excited to share a recent announcement that we made on our latest platform. ARC is a performance platform that can be used in the building sector to measure and track performance of a building over a range of metrics. It's data-based. It's built off the wealth of data we've collected on buildings from around the world, as well as business data. And it utilizes input on energy and water use and a host of other factors. And among other things, we've added to this ARC performance platform a carbon emission calculation. We currently have a calculated score for energy, and in the future, we will be adding a carbon calculation for transportation carbon, as well as potentially for water, where the data support it. We see this as an exciting new tool that allows all buildings to understand their building performance and to engage in a process of continuous improvement. And because we know we need to not only make all of our new construction as sustainable as possible, ultimately net zero, but also to engage in retrofitting of existing buildings, this tool will be available to all buildings to engage with the tool and start to understand how they can improve and track that performance over time. We're very excited about this. Performance really is the future of high-performing buildings, and this new tool, providing an immediate entry point for all building owners, we think will be very powerful in engaging the building sector. We've also added to our suite of rating systems PEER, which is a rating system for high-performing power systems. It is modeled after LEED and likewise measures and tracks performance over a range of metrics, including categories of reliability and resiliency, energy efficiency and environmental performance, operational effectiveness, and customer contribution. This is a nascent system that we think has a lot of potential to help power systems as they become increasingly competitive, and to also help them prioritize investments as they'll be able to see the outcome of those possible actions they can take. And as part of our mission to transform the built environment, we engage in policy advocacy at a range of levels. We see the NDCs as a new opportunity to engage with the global audience and to support green building as one of the tools for nations to meet their NDC commitments. And we will be using this opportunity to reach out through our network of green building professionals and members who are in over 160 countries to engage the private sector in the conversations of policies and tools to help make the reductions we all know are needed. And we've been active as well in supporting U.S. Bilateral engagement on technical issues with the State Department, Department of Energy, and will continue to do so as well. And with that, I'll turn it back to Lisa.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from Kathy Woolens at Berkshire Hathaway Energy. Kathy, thanks for being with us.
Hi, everyone. Just a little bit about who Berkshire Hathaway Energy is. We are the energy organization under the Berkshire Hathaway Incorporated umbrella. We serve about 11.6 million customers worldwide with about 21,000 employees. In the US, we have regulated utility operating companies that include Pacific Corp that has operations in California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Utah, and Wyoming. NV Energy, which serves about 95% of the state of Nevada with its energy. And even though Nevada seems like a really big state, with all the tourists there, about 40 million a year, it's actually a pretty small state in terms of its overall population. But I can tell you, when the lights go down on the Las Vegas Strip, that's definitely something that we want to avoid. So obviously reliability and issues there are very important. Our Midwest utility, where I am based, I'm based in the state of Iowa. It's a relatively small state with 3 million residents or citizens in the state. Our operating company there is called Mid-American Energy Company. It also serves parts of South Dakota, Nebraska, and Illinois. We have a U.S. independent power producing company. It was formed in 2011 called BHE Renewables. And it was a company that was actually designed to serve the renewables market on an unregulated basis. So whether it's through the RE100 effort, through other efforts, getting power purchase agreements in for other entities in states that have aggressive renewable portfolio standards, that company was specifically formed to serve that market. We also have 2 natural gas pipelines. So, when we talk about kind of all of the above strategies, we've got it in the US, 2 natural gas pipelines, one that operates largely in the Western US and one that operates in the central US, basically going all the way from the state of Texas through the state of Minnesota. We operate internationally in Canada. We have a electric transmission company there. We also operate in the UK, also a distribution company, No Generation Assets. And then lastly, we operate in the Philippines. We have a very large 150 megawatt hydroelectric facility there that was a multi-purpose project called the Casignan project. And it not only took water that was not being used from 2 rivers, brought it together to generate electricity, but it also serves as rice irrigation and allowed that particular area to become a net exporter of rice, whereas previously they were importing. So, what do we have in this arena? We've got some really exciting projects. Some are very large, and some are very minor, but really make a difference. I talked about Mid-American Energy Company, sort of my home utility, if you will. We have currently 4,048 megawatts of wind generation located in the state of Iowa. Our farmers absolutely love our projects because what happens is, and anybody who follows sort of, commodity markets, corn, soybeans, those things, knows that those are very volatile markets. And despite farmers' best efforts, they oftentimes don't produce as intended. So as a consequence, we bring to our farming rural communities some real cash crop, which is wind. We pay our landowners a yearly lease fee to have the turbines on the property. But 4,048 megawatts is fairly large. That's a lot of turbines spread around throughout the state. But the story gets even better, and it's actually pretty exciting because we recently received approval from our utility board to advance those projects and add another 2,000 megawatts of wind generation in the state of Iowa. When those projects are complete in 2019, those projects will, on an average annual basis, serve 85% of our customer load in the state of Iowa. And we have a vision to go to 100%. So maybe we ought to be in the RE100 group, I'm not sure. But fundamentally, it's a great story, and we're doing that at no increase in cost to customers. We do not anticipate going in asking for an increase in our rates until sometime in the 2020s. It's out there, 2029 timeframe. So it's a great success story. It's a win-win for everyone. We've brought a lot of the value chain of wind generation to the state of Iowa because of these projects. And that's turbine blade manufacturing, that's components, you name it. I think the last statistic I saw, we have about 7,000 jobs in the state of Iowa that are directly related to wind manufacturing. So, what are some of our other companies doing? Nevada, NV Energy has one of the most diverse generation portfolios in the country. They have 20 geothermal projects, 11 solar projects, about a dozen wind, biomass, hydro, waste heat. We actually had an opportunity to partner with our gas pipeline that served NV Energy. So we were able to take the waste heat off the gas pipeline, one of the compressor stations, and use it for power generation in the state of Nevada. So it's those kinds of partnering opportunities that we love to engage in. But likewise, we want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our customers. One of the ways that we're doing that, and one of the things that we're seeing, is some of our cities and states wanting to advance their renewable portfolio, if you will. And a good example is the city of Salt Lake City. And if you've ever been to Salt Lake City, beautiful area, very, very conservative, but the city has gone to wanting 100% renewable electricity supply. We are advancing that opportunity for them through a subscriber solar project. The city knew it wasn't necessarily economic for them to do their own projects, but we could do a utility scale solar project and have subscribers, including the city or residential customers, who could say, this is the product I want, and we as a company want to make sure that that's the product that they get. Story is a little bit more interesting in some other respects too, as we look at, one of our natural gas fueled power plants that's just been installed in the last couple of years. We were able to partner with a greenhouse that grows tomatoes and not only take waste heat from one of our power plants, but also pump CO2 into the greenhouse to save our customer money. So really, when we get down to statistics, we've got a pipe, basically 10 feet in diameter, 475 feet long to the greenhouse. That avoids the greenhouse's requirement to use propane fuel. And it also, we also, through some energy efficiency funds that we provided to that organization for pumps and lighting and those sorts of things, ultimately get to the point where we save our customer about $500,000 a year in energy costs. And we save enough CO2 which is the equivalent of about 1,056 average Utah homes. So we like partnering. We look at innovative ways. And the last one I mentioned in terms of a partnership is we have a problem in certain parts of the US with what amounts to an overgeneration of renewable energy, particularly in the state of California, where they have a very aggressive renewable portfolio standard. And so in the Western US, there's no what we call an independent system operator or regional transmission organization to oversee power flows. And so there's all, and I'm getting way too technical, but there's all these balancing authorities and everything else, and there's not good market capabilities to address overgeneration or undergeneration. So what we've done is partner with the California Independent System Operator so that during times when California is overproducing renewable generation, we've got interfaces in our system, and we've gotten to the point in this energy imbalance market is what it's called. It's advanced to the point where other companies, other utilities in the US are also starting to become participants in this market. We can take that excess solar generation during the day, And what we did was just during the third quarter, two of our companies, so a 3-month period of time, we were able to achieve $5.6 million in benefits for NV Energy customers, more than $15 million in benefits for Pacific Work customers, and $5.4 million in benefits to California customers by just moving electrons around, basically. What that did was it also pushed down the generation from fossil fuel fired units and saved, again, this is only a 3-month period of time and limited applicability, more than 14,000 metric tons of CO2. So there are lots of opportunities to partner. Sometimes you have to look in really creative ways, and we need to make sure as we're implementing NDCs that we capture those, and we've got the right mechanism to capture them.
Thank you, Kathy. I really look forward to the discussion to drill down in that a little bit more. So next will be Harry Vahar with Philips Lighting.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. And first of all, thank you for being here with so many friends. When I see all the work that the BCSE is doing, I wonder if you and your staff ever sleep. And I think Kateri is taking the only winning approach for the future by bipartisan approach on energy efficiency. We are a partner of the World Green Building Council, but also Delhi Metro Rail is an important customer for us in India and doing a lot of work. So thank you for that. So there are 3 things that I would like to briefly share with you. So one, what is the size and the nature of the challenge that we're actually tackling when we talk about energy efficiency? Then just to give you some examples, also one that is interesting from some years ago in the US that you will like, also in the current perspective. And then thirdly, how can we do this? So what are the most important focal areas? So what should we do to make things work? So one, the size and the nature of the challenge. When you look at energy efficiency, and we talk about climate change, and we know that not everybody understands this, but then climate change is only one of the manifestations of a resource-intensive society. I would say, and I think many of you will agree, that also the financial crisis was a manifestation of a resource-intensive linear society. And we can no longer afford to do that with 7.3 billion, let alone with close to 10 billion. It's just impossible. There are not enough resources, but also nobody can afford this. Also not those who think they can afford this today. It's not possible. So therefore we need to move to a circular society. And that means for parts, then increasing what we do on energy efficiency. So how much do we need to increase? If you look at things, even a couple of weeks ago, talking in some meetings with European parliamentarians, I said, well, if there's one thing that you should remember, just remember 3% per year on anything. You don't have to be a Greek mathematician to know that if you do something 3% per year, you're done mid-century. So energy efficiency, the thing today is that energy demand, because of population growth and urbanization, keeps on rising by 3% per year. And the rate of efficiency improvement is only 1.5% per year. So some new buildings, some more efficient appliances, some of those LED lights, and a little bit of renovation. But we should do twice more. So we should double the rate of energy efficiency improvement. And for those who don't understand efficiency, and there are also quite a lot in Europe, I would then think, but what is it? It's not an invisible form of energy. More energy efficiency is more renovation. But then you can also convert it, what we do, in energy productivity. So just show how little energy you need per unit of economic product. So if you double the rate of energy efficiency improvement, it actually means for the most part we need to double renovation rates, because the main reason that this rate is only 1.5% is that renovation rates of buildings are 1.2% per year as a global average, but virtually the same everywhere. And this creates jobs. So we've done calculations actually last year in an energy productivity report that we launched, but also discussed at EE Global. If we do this, it creates 6 million jobs by 2020, a quarter of those in the US. It reduces our energy bill by about $2.5 billion, about a quarter in the US. And those jobs are some people innovating on lighting, on building management and other things, but mostly those are medium and low skilled jobs in the construction sector. People putting in double glazing, changing the lights in the ceilings and the streets, putting in HVAC and all of that. And those are jobs that you cannot export. So I think this would make sense in any country, but particularly I think this is a lever for progress in the years ahead also in the US. So a few examples. So lighting is a case in point. We started the program about at the end of 2003, when the European Parliament was thinking about how to put the Kyoto Treaty into practice. So what changes? Well, the name of the city, that's now called Paris Agreement. But then at the time we engaged with politicians what became a global program to phase out inefficient lighting, with the same arguments. So not just climate change, but also reducing energy expenditure for cities, for households, for governments, for companies, also creating economic benefits. Also for companies, if you need less energy for the same products and services that you offer, they're simply more competitive. So we had a lot of focus on that. And one interesting example is that in December 2006, we called for the global phase out of incandescent light bulbs. We did that in Brussels, and we repeated that on March 15, 2007 in Washington with the Lighting Efficiency Coalition, so with Qatari, with NRDC, with the California Energy Commission, and with Earth Day Network. And in December that year, 19 December 2007, so under the Bush administration, this became a paragraph in the Energy Independence and Security Act. So I would say that this also gives hope, because energy efficiency is not just tackling climate change, which is really important, we all know that, but it's also of sheer economic interest for everything that's being said that needs to be improved. So lighting alone can contribute, if we switch on the lighting and it's happening, about $300 billion reduced energy expenditure per year. And again, about a quarter in the US. So who wouldn't want that? So how should we do this? There are 4 areas of action, and some are already pretty well addressed. Others, they need a little push. One is technology, which already exists and is only getting better. I would say that it's there in the interest, particularly, well, worldwide, it's a race, you could say, because any economy, also in India and China, they see that the solutions are in innovation and innovating, and also the future. But particularly, a lot of US and European companies are really outstanding in energy efficient technologies. So it's also in their interest that innovation will be stimulated. And interestingly, also their 3% is a number, because public investments in innovation in Europe are only like, what is it, close to 2%. So also there the argument is this needs to go up to 3% per year. And then policies. So in policies, quite a lot is happening, but more needs to be done. So minimum energy performance standards is one. So just a threshold on efficiency for lighting, but also for white goods and other appliances. But also there, it's important to have building renovation ambitions. So just the target, how much per year? Well, 3% of all existing buildings per year would do the job, in more ways than one. But also there, and I think there one thing to add is a lot of arguments on building renovation, you will have heard as well. It's difficult, and I'm in this building, and it's so obtrusive, and it's expensive. I think one piece of work that I really, really like comes from the US. It's from Architecture 2030, from Ed Masria. And he actually checked, he did some calculations. So if you have a question, always good to calculate and see what it means. And he found that if we would use the moment of tenancy or ownership change, and use that moment for renovation, that brings us to this doubling of renovation rates. And you could also say there, if a real estate company adds 5 or 10% to the mortgage, or you as a private resident to your mortgage, or the one who owns your home, I think that's not a big thing. So that's financeable. It makes the building more future-proof and more valuable. You pay maybe a little bit more rent, but a lot less on the energy bill. So this moment of ownership and tenancy change, I think, is what we should use here with carrots and sticks. Then on financing, so yes, even this linear society has also resulted in high public debts. So cities are not allowed to borrow. Companies want to use their balance sheet for doing business. So also there, it's important that we find regulation that allows energy efficiency investment to be off balance sheet. The energy bill is off balance sheet. You pay it every month. But then, interestingly, energy efficiency investments, they suddenly become capital expenditure. And that's a hurdle. So for financing, I would say this is one of the important things to do. Find ways to make energy efficiency, energy services, allowable as off-balance sheet financing. Because then it's not a hurdle. We have the business models. More and more companies have the business model. We are implementing in this space business models, lighting as a service. That's where we lease lighting. Nobody wants to own a car, so why should you own your lighting? And then we have one contract, then for instance, Schiphol Airport, and so they only buy the amount of light per month, and that's what they pay for. And we are responsible for the operation, and then it's in their interest and in our interest to have it as efficient and as close to the state of the art as possible. So I think also these business models, I see them in the area of financing. And then lastly, communication is more important than ever. Even last week, I was writing a briefing for our European general manager, who had a meeting with Prince Charles, and then was about climate change and sustainable development. I said, well, for one part, you should look at the whole rational part that we're talking about, how much economic sense that it makes. But for the other part, we should look at how can we give meaning, how can we give substance to the words equitable and inclusive. I think we've heard those words, equitable, sustainable development, inclusive, and I think, okay, well, yes, maybe one day. But it's really, really important because a lot of people, about a quarter, not only in the US, but also many European countries, including my own, they don't feel included. And we may not like a lot of things that are being said, but the fact that those people don't feel included and don't feel part of the game means we have to do something. And for part, we need to make a narrative that they understand, like safer cities, productive workplaces, because that's what they care about. We have programs where we have lighting for schools, reducing the energy bill by 50%, reducing CO2. Even interestingly, tonight with our CEO, we have an event at a school here in Marrakesh on that. But then also we call that program, and Kateri knows, we call it Bright Schools. Bright, of course, a little bit because of the light, but also if you have better lighting, kids, they learn better and faster. So learning effectiveness increases. And that's what if then as a parent, you would think, yeah, Bright School, yeah, that's what I want. And a lot of people are not going to read those big reports, and they're not going to be at COP22 and 23. So I think that the narrative, the way we communicate, but also how we make them part of the solution, is critically important. And one last thing then, coming back to renovation, we're also twisting our minds on what does it take. And in Europe, in the same discussion as in the US, but I think what also is relevant for India and China, what we also should do is then do a little bit more of modeling so that we calculate, okay, how many buildings, how much floor space, how much needs to be done, because that also tells you how many installers do you need, how many jobs will it create. And I'm looking now there at my friend Bill Sisson from UTC. Years ago, in the Energy Efficiency in Buildings project of the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, long name, we did a lot of modeling, and Bill was on top of that. And then we also calculated for certain countries, well, it means so many homes per month, so many non-residential buildings. And I think if we also start talking that language there, that narrative, make it tangible, I think any politician will embrace this. And I would say probably they would be eager to embrace it before the other ones, left, right, or center, because that's the agenda that we all need. So that's a little bit what I wanted to share with you. So I'm a concerned optimist. I'm an optimist because we're still moving in the right direction, but concerned because we need to find ways to make it more inclusive and to make it more understandable so that we can increase that momentum that we so dearly need. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Harry. And so many good suggestions for implementation in your remarks too. I'm trying to capture as many of them as I can from all of you, because I think that's what this is all about. The different partnerships and new models that are in the marketplace or being fostered by the partnerships to deploy cost effectively and expand the customers and the communities that can benefit from these deployments. So next, AK Singh, we're going to hear more of a municipal and local perspective. It's really wonderful to have you. Look forward to your remarks. Would you like me to pull up your slides?
Yeah.
Okay. Terrific. Here you go.
Yeah, I would like to give a perspective of transport system and basically transport in cities. Transport is the basic requirement for any social and economic development of any country or any city per se. But at the same time, it is one of the major contributors or major source of emission of carbons and increase the footprint carbon footprint is increasing like anything. Then and that is why a integrated planning is needed for the various modes of transport. That is long distance trains. I will basically referring to the surface transport, long distance trains, then buses, trains, then car, battery operated car, taxis, and then metro. As I told, the carbon emission as well as the cost of transportation has to be assessed for sustainability of the or for the climate change, to prevent climate change. We have to assess both. An integrated thing has to be taken, a view has to be taken for long perspective. So far as the sustainability and the greenhouse gas footprint is concerned due to the various modes of transport, I will like to tell that when the metro was introduced, I will go a bit slide up. Keeping in view the Delhi road condition and the population of the city, in 1995 or before that, a master plan was made that Delhi metro, there should be a metro system in the Delhi, and the present road scenario cannot take care of the transport system. And a master plan was made for almost 400 kilometer, and that is to be completed by 2021. In 1995, Government of India and Government of Delhi, with equal participation, Delhi Metro was formed, and in 2002, the first section of Delhi Metro, that is between Sahadra and Tisajari, that was opened for the public on December 2002. Now, presently, we have gone ahead and we have made out almost 200 kilometer, and we are running 200 kilometer of metros. And we are planning, or we are under construction for 200 more kilometer presently, which will be completed within next 1 year. And by seeing all the success of metro and the transportation, road choking, and the greenhouse gas emission, carbon footprint increasing, other cities who are adjoining cities like Ghaziabad, Faridabad, Noida, Greater Noida, they also got developed. But transport was the basic requirement, and that is why they approached DMRC to construct metro for them. And we have constructed metro for all the adjoining city also, and the satellite cities also. As I told, the metro is one of the source of transport, such source of transport which can reduce the carbon emission as high as which I have given the figures here. Initially, when we were planning the metro, it has to be designed. Metro has to be designed such that it's rolling stock, it's a station, and the adjoining equipment has to be such that it is most energy efficient. When we have planned Delhi Metro, at the initial itself, we have selected a rolling stock which was of regenerative braking type. Regenerative means when the train stops, at that time the kinetic energy and the potential energy in that should be converted into energy for the braking, and that energy should be fed to the overhead so that other adjoining train can use that. Then stations has to be so designed that ventilation has also to be sustainable, because when metros run, most of the metros run underground, and in underground air conditioning and ventilation is one of the basic requirement which has also to be sustainable. So it has to be so selected that it itself take care of its energy requirements. Many other because of all these measures taken by Delhi Metro, we have registered our metro system with CDM project of UNFCCC for installing low greenhouse gas emitting rolling stock, for regenerative braking under project ID 1351. The rolling estimate was estimated to reduce the carbon footprint of almost 41,000 tons of CO2 per year. Till date, Delhi Metro has earned 2,20,000 carbon emission reductions from this project. Delhi Metro again registered with UNFCCC under ID 4463 for use of metro with respect to other modes of transport, because we have prevented many vehicles to come on the road, and so far Delhi Metro has also earned 1 million carbon emission reduction from this project. MRTS has also, we have registered under program of activities under project number 9863. The project has got potential to generate more than 6 lakh CR annually just from DMRC phase 3 operations, and upcoming metro projects across the India, which I will give perspective after this. They are also, we are becoming, or we are acting like an umbrella for all the metros coming in India. Delhi Metro has also been registered under Gold Standard Foundation, also for adopting energy saving measures in stations in phase 1 over phase 2. And under the project ID, we have also average annual greenhouse gas emission reduction has been estimated approximately 6,000 tons of CO2, and so far Delhi Metro has earned 12.8 thousand carbon emission reductions from this project. Now, giving the energy scenario, annual energy consumption of the metro is very, very high, because metro is a basically energy intensive unit. Our out of 100%, 100 cost, almost 40% in energy cost, and that is why all these actions have been taken. We have initially adopted 25 kV AC traction system rather than going for DC system, which is most energy efficient. Then we are selecting higher COP, chillers, low weight coach. Even the coach train we have selected, we have made of stainless steel or aluminum mix, so that its weight is less and more passenger we can carry. Regenerative braking in rolling stock. Then we have also gone for massive use of LED, especially now in the metros which is under construction. This I will like. The energy conservation we are doing on the large basis. We extensive use of variable frequency drives we are using in pumps, AHUs, TF, all the fans. Solar power, we are putting PV cells on all the rooftop of elevated stations, and all the depots and parking areas. We are controlling through BMS all the energies and monitoring that. Then green initiative which we have taken up till now for metro, there was no green rating system or measurements which can be done, that how much energy we have saved and we have contributed to greenhouse gas system reduction. In that, in 2013 we have taken initiative. We have approached USGBC and IGBC combined, and we have made out a rating system for metros, first time in the world, which we whatever metros we are constructing or which is under construction, that we are making or constructing with highest rating system of platinum. There is no global also metro rating system globally available, and we have we and USGBC has jointly made a MOU, and we are also in process of making for the all the across the world metros the rating system with which it will be the world metros can be assessed, all existing stations can be assessed, and we can suggest the methods to take care of energy and energy saving measures. These are the view of some of the stations which is under construction or we have constructed and just done. These are the solar PVs we have used. This is one of the stations inside view where we have used extensive LED stations, LED light fittings in all the underground stations, and we have taken decision to go for 100% LED for all our underground stations. This is the entry for our metro stations. They totally green. We are taking measures for all green features, which is under the standard of USGBC and also IGBC. This is the MRTS view in India. Delhi Metro has made out DPR, that is detailed project report for all the metros, upcoming metros in India: Jaipur, Kochi, Noida, Greater Noida, Vijayawada, and Mumbai. This we are constructing. From Delhi, we are monitoring. Corporate office is at Delhi, and we are making the metro system for all these cities, and we are giving consultancy assignments to Lucknow, Ahmedabad, Nagpur Metro, Pune Metro, Visakhapatnam, Kerala, and all these cities. Over and above that, we are giving to Indonesia, that is Jakarta Metro, Mauritius Metro, and then Dhaka Metro. We are consultant there. This is the metro system in Delhi. Just an overview of that figure. This is our energy management policy, which we have adopted. These are some of the simulated structure of underground station, how we run metro and how energy saving measures can be taken in that. Thank you for giving the opportunity.
Thank you. Yeah. I want to thank all the speakers. Really excellent information. And I have a few follow-up questions, and then I'd love to open it up. And I know everyone says that, and we don't get enough time. So I'm really only going to ask a couple quick questions up here, and then I'm going to move to you. And I have more questions. So if people prefer that mode, that works too. But actually, my first question is for you, AK. I mean, really tremendous leadership. And when I look from the United States point of view, I hope that our transportation systems and our railroads and metro systems are doing all the things that you have done. I know one of the challenges we face in the United States is how to finance those kinds of things. Can you just share a little bit about how you have financed some of those investments? Thank you.
I believe we have gone, because we are developing country, so there is a big difference between the developed country and developing country. But we are being financed by JICA, that is Japan International Cooperative Agency, mostly, and ACL Development Banks. Most of the metros of India is being financed by these two funding agency. But we are generating our own fund also. I would like to, we have gone to unique model. We have got across the, we are going to these places where there is no habitat available as on date. So we are developing property development. We are making the buildings and we are selling it out because of higher cost, and we are earning out of that also and financing ourselves. That is also one of the big way we are doing in India.
Sure.
AK, I just wanted to know how your ridership has been and how the metro has been received. It's so new. Are you full all the time? Is there going to be enough capacity? If you could talk a bit about the ridership, that'd be great.
Ridership, I will tell you, our ridership as on date is 33 million. And it is as big as many countries. I have been to Australia. When they have listened it, we have been interacting with Perth Metro. They are just running 1 lakh, and we are running 30 lakhs per day, of course, per day. And with the phase 3 completion, which will be 400 kilometer, almost 400 kilometer, we will be carrying 6 million, 60.
So when you say that, 6 million a day?
Day, yeah, per day, morning to evening, yeah.
Well, yes, again, the leadership is well noted, and we look to share that knowledge in our own country, and I'm sure you're looking to share it, as you were saying, with other systems in India, but again, really prime experience to share with those in the NDCs that are focused on transportation.
Yeah, and I will also like to share one thing which I could not tell because it's not related with sustainable, but of course it is related with sustainability, that we are running in, we are not running, most of the metros across the world is in loss, and they are financed by government, but we are self-sustained. We are earning and we are giving bonus to all our employees, including me.
Congratulations. Yeah. Hope that this year is equally as productive. I had one other question before we go to the audience, and that was for you, Harry. I know that we've talked in many different settings about the value of partnerships, and there are a number of partnerships that were developed in the last couple of years that we've been involved in. And I just wanted to see if you could discuss, because you mentioned inclusivity and you mentioned equity, how partnerships can help address those challenges that we face. And I was going to mention the Building Accelerator Partnership in particular, because I know that that's one that we've worked on together, but there's, EP 100 is a partnership, and there was probably 10 different partnerships that people referred to. And I don't think that would have been the case 5 years ago. So thank you for sharing your thoughts.
Okay. I think it's really important that we team up in partnerships, and then particularly the ones that you mentioned that focus on implementation is the Global Energy Efficiency Accelerator Platform. So together with my other friend, Clay Nestler from Johnson Controls, we are a co-founder of that. And the idea is simply that if you get closer to the ground, so with sectors like lighting, buildings, transport, industry, district heating, and with subnational governments, which is an ugly word of saying city, states, and regions, who are also much closer to electorates, and they have to keep a city alive, like Delhi is doing with the metro system, that is where we can really implement. So I see that it's not always without struggle, because different partners have different backgrounds. Let's say a UN person is different than a business person, but as long as we understand that we need to be complementary to each other, and then in defining the policies, doing the pilot projects, finding the ways to scale and finance, I think that's really crucial. Another partnership we have is with the Climate Group, who actually run EP 100s and also RE 100s. So we ourselves are a member because we have committed to becoming carbon neutral by 2020 as a company, so all our facilities. But then the Climate Group also years ago started a program to pilot LED street lighting in cities. So they did that in 12 cities, in Sydney, in Kolkata, in New York, in Toronto, in Rio de Janeiro, in London, and a few more. And now these cities have all made commitments. So Mayor Bloomberg years ago said all new street lighting in New York will be LED by 2017, so that's next year. Kolkata has done a magnificent work, and Prime Minister Modi has said all cities in India will go to LED lighting. But what is really interesting, it's not just them partnering that happened, but also those cities didn't want to do this initially because they felt, technology is not ready yet, it's too early, we're not a test bed. But then once they were involved, and I think then also organizations like the Climate Group and like Save Energy and you are also a very credible convening partner and a partnering partner, you could say, of bringing different stakeholders together. But then once they got that experience, they got really enthusiastic because they saw like, hey, this works. You have these organizations that bring us together. So I really believe this is part of what we need to do and what we'll continue to do. Because also we know nobody can do this alone. But I see this also as a way to accelerate learning, to share learning, so that others can copy. So it's and there are many more examples. I won't make it too long, but then there are more examples. So to share learning, to see what mistakes have others made, so you don't make them yourselves, and so that we can accelerate.
And when you go down to the local level, you are including the community, because looking at, Delhi Metro, the pictures you had, your riders see that every time they go in and out of the stations, and it sends a message that it's economically viable and beneficial to make these improvements. And then they may want to do it to the extent that they can in their households or their businesses. So that's why I think the partnerships are so important, when they can expand the participation by different segments that aren't here at the top, that makes it real for them. Kateri, you've been very involved in partnerships. Do you have any further comments on that?
Sorry, maybe just a couple, and I would love Kathy's comments too, because she's mentioned so many great partnerships. As an overarching comment, I would say that in my time of working in this space, I see a difference and a change in leadership and the way that people, the heads of companies, approach leadership. And it used to be that you wanted your company to be the best and to shine, and you were a single leader and marched forward. And I think that there's a shift and a movement in leadership to be more collaborative and to work in partnership with others. That I think there's a recognition in C-suites that in order to be successful and to add to the bottom line and keep things moving, that it has to be done in partnership with others. So that's one thing I think is helping to drive this. And then the other thing that I see is the mitigation of risk that Harry mentioned, that if you have partners, there's a shared risk. There's a way that You can come together and it's not as huge a leap. You can learn from one another. You can, again, share the risk, share the learning. And it seems to make things move better and more quickly than trying to do one-off projects. So take Qatar and do a project there and then try to take it and sell to another city and then one after that. It shortens the amount of time you've got to spend. It spreads the risk, and it seems to make things drive a lot more quickly. I also would say that governments, I think, get this. And if you look at solicitations that our government puts out, for example, they often will require, in order to put forward a proposal, that you come with partners and that you come with matching funds, because that's the last piece of it. Money's hard to come by. And so when you partner, you pool money, you pool resources, and you can get a lot more done. So those are really the three things that I think are that I've seen are driving partnerships. And I think it's a wonderful thing, because we're so much more successful now than we were back in 2004 because of that collaboration.
You mentioned turning it over to Kathy, and I will, because my question for you, Kathy, was, and I've been involved with the Edison Electric Institute, of which you are a member, and their partnership with utilities around the globe. So you had mentioned all these different initiatives, and I was just wondering how your industry communicates and partners not only with other utilities around the world, but with customers or others. What are the partnerships that you utilize?
Yeah, there's a lot of information sharing at the Edison Electric Institute, and it's not just information sharing. It's the knowledge base, but it's also, I mean, hands on the ground or boots on the ground kind of sharing, where we can look at things like major storms, the hurricanes, et cetera. We have mutual aid agreements, things like that. So, I think we have for a long time definitely been engaged in the partnership opportunities that creates for us. But, there's almost a friendly competition when it comes to advancing renewables and novel projects within our organization, the Edison Electric Institute aspect. And likewise, when we're negotiating with customers over some of these projects, and we have some of the RE 100 companies that negotiate directly with us for their energy supplies. We learn from one another through that opportunity, and it sets the bar higher a little bit at a time, and I think it stretches us as an industry to try to meet those expectations of our external customers and our stakeholders.
Great, thank you. So as promised, we wanted to go to the floor for a few questions, and then I can ask a couple of follow-up questions towards the end. So if there are any questions, please. Okay, I see two in the front. Any others I can put in the queue? Okay, so then why don't we start here, and please introduce yourself.
Yeah. So I'm Bill Sisson.
Yeah.
United Technologies.
Oh wait, we're going to get a microphone, Bill, so just one moment, please.
Bill Sisson with United Technologies. I'm actually glad Harry left, because he was touching on some of the things I'm going to ask in my question. But I think, first of all, thanks to the panel. Not thanks for thanking me or shouting out to me, but thanks to the panel for a great set of presentations. I really appreciate that. And congrats to the BCSE for putting such a wonderful program together. You all presented a great view of what we've done, but Kateri, you pushed ahead and said, this is what we need to achieve. Doubling energy productivity, here are all the great benefits. Harry touched on it with doubling energy efficiency to be a real contributor to that objective. What I'm curious about is your perspectives on what are the significant issues we face to get there. It's a great ambition, but there are, as I know, technology issues, market structural issues, there are regulatory issues. So can you touch on that a little bit more, get your perspectives into the room?
Thank you. So what comes to mind is thinking in the context of the countries and the NDCs. The World Resources Institute looked at the NDCs that were submitted last year and the extent to which they included building efficiency as one of the strategies to meet their commitments. And surprisingly, only a third really addressed building efficiency. So that tells me that a barrier is simply some knowledge and expertise in how to leverage policy in ways to achieve building efficiency. I think also, as we look ahead, the building stock is expected to double from about 150 billion square meters to 300 billion square meters from now to 2050. And so we need to really get everything in line with building codes and incentives. So all that new construction is really as green and low carbon as possible. And, you know, as far as the existing building renovation, that is challenging, accessing capital, keeping it off, making that accessible to companies and local governments is, I think, something we need to work harder on.
So I want to second what Elizabeth started with, which is it's a lot about information and understanding how you get to do this. And that's one of the things that we've spent a lot of time on. And, you know, there's really, it's not a secret recipe. I mean, building energy codes and appliance and equipment standards, there's proven track record. There's 40 years of history with that, not just in the United States, but in other parts around the world where we can see that works. I think the research and development, continuing investment in research and development, so you keep new technologies in the pipeline. That's another one of these incentives to help early technologies like LED lighting when they were around get into the marketplace, and then the education and outreach to consumers, whether that's through an Energy Star labeling program or a USGBC labeling program to get people to understand why this is important. So I think those are the kind of things that have to be done. Standing in the way of it is how do you spread that around, and then the intransigent special interests that are there. So, you know, the home builders in the US fighting new building energy codes. It's ridiculous, but it's there and it's stopping progress. Commercial building owners putting building labeling on buildings, you know, that shouldn't be controversial, but it is. So I think there's that special interests that are intransigent and that are there. And I think that the learning is the second option, second really big hurdle. And the third is, you know, people keep talking about financing as an issue. Yes, it's an issue because it's not because the money's not there, but the money's not in the right places, and the money that's there isn't being utilized. So you have a ridiculous situation where Bank of America puts out a facility and says, we have all this money, we want to invest in energy efficiency. Nobody takes them on it, so they pull it back. They cancel the program. So I think those are the three things that I would say are the big issues out there.
And I'll just add, you know, certainly in the utility sector, there's major transformation happening right now, notwithstanding everything else. But you know, things to look at moving forward are as our projections continue to go down in terms of load, we have to be prepared to deal with things like electric vehicles, you know, wider scale electrification of the transportation sector, because if we're not prepared for that, I mean, we've just done everyone a disservice. So it's things like that where, you know, you're thinking years and years ahead while living under the constraints kind of at least in the regulatory utility world, and making sure too that we get the right policies in place to be the enabler to do some of those things. And at a minimum that we're not putting the wrong policies in place that will preclude them.
Thank you. Well, we had another question from our audience.
Hi, Eric Holzer with the Edison Electric Institute. Would just echo the comments on a great panel. Appreciate you guys putting this together. Fantastic. My first question was for Kateri and Elizabeth. I think it may have just been asked, but if you had any additional thoughts in particular on, my question was on the challenges of reaching out to developing countries and improving energy efficiency and building improvement. I think you may have touched on it, but if you had additional thoughts, would welcome that. And for Kathy, was just interested in any thoughts you had on lessons learned and advice you would give to other utilities on kind of helping replicate the success that you guys have had. And I was thinking about the energy imbalance market and how you've been able to take excess renewables in one state and move them around to others, and a lot of people benefiting from that. Any additional thoughts you might have on, again, sort of lessons learned and how we can amplify that? Thanks.
Thank you. We have a few mechanisms we use to reach out to other countries and engage in policy discussions. And One of that is our partnerships, building on that theme. So the Building Efficiency Accelerator has been one that's very useful to help connect different NGOs and private sector groups with cities that want to make progress on building efficiency. Also, some of the UN frameworks, the new Global Alliance on Buildings and Construction is another one that has potential to help connect resources with national governments. And then also through our network of lead projects and lead professionals around the world who are making green building and the strategies local. I mean, the green building is a local industry, and so when they're armed with the information to show good examples and case studies of how they can save money and what these things are on the ground, that just builds capacity and it can take over and blossom.
So I think for the Alliance, we have a history of having worked with countries on building energy codes, particularly in India, but we don't do that work any longer. And I think our role now really has been one of an emissary to show what's happening in the US and the benefits of that and how that process is done. And that trying to seed that kind of activity in other countries. Where we've been most successful actually is in Mexico, and working with the International Codes Council and the ASHRAE folks really went in and helped Mexico to write a building energy code, the first ever. So I think that, you know, we're working at it, but there's a big need for a lot of people to be working at it. And so to the extent that EEI can get involved, USGBC can be a bigger player in it, it would be great.
So lessons learned from the EIM, or the energy imbalance market, the lessons continue to be learned, I will say. And it has been a multi-year process, but information is absolutely key, because people come into change with misperceptions, or at least perceptions that may not be entirely accurate. And so, you know, having the numbers to support what's happening, you know, anticipating, particularly, and one of the reasons I'm saying that this is lessons learned in process is with California going from a 33% our renewable portfolio standard to a 50%, the problem is going to be exacerbated by that. But we're also seeing the number of companies that are becoming engaged in that process increase. So it'll help mitigate the problem. But there are a lot of people who, you know, kept saying it won't work, it'll only increase CO2 emissions, it'll do this, it'll do that. And you have to take this as sort of this giant leap of faith step forward, you know, have as much data as you can, and then monitor the data very carefully to start to chip away at those perceptions and prove people wrong in a nice way, of course. But you know, the next thing is the potential for a regional ISO out there, independent system operator, and you know, that's another thing that has people really spooked. So sometimes it's baby steps, and sometimes it's giant leaps. And, you know, if you have confidence in your position and you've got the numbers to support you, and now our numbers are actually, the numbers are coming out much, much better than we anticipated. So, you know, you can take that conservative approach, conservative enough to make the project happen, while not overselling the benefits. And if the benefits come out better, it's upside.
Well, I'd like to take it back to the NDCs for a moment. So how do you all look at the NDCs as a guidepost? Are they showing an interest in leadership? Kateri, you talked about the value of some of the partnerships. It saves time. You're educating, you're getting the information out to a lot of different players to further down the cycle of change. I mean, basically you're talking, Kathy, about like, how do you get people to be willing to change? So how do the NDCs help with that? Or other aspects of, you know, making more of a transformation around the globe?
I'll start. Well, and I think, you know, having that target, having something there, having something concrete is hugely beneficial. And of course, in the US with the power sector, having something like the Clean Power Plan say you have to do this and you have to figure out how to get there, certainly I think helps to crystallize the fact that, you know, you might not like something, but ultimately you have to do it. You know, eat your oatmeal in the morning, whatever it is. And I think once people break free from the thought that, oh, I don't like it, but I have to do it, creativity starts to come. And it, you know, it sounds maybe Pollyannish, but I think that, you know, certainly in our sector, we've seen that, you know, not only has the creativity come, but the markets kind of come with it to be an enabler as well. And that's been a positive. And, you know, how those things fit together, I'm not certain. And whether it's intentional or not, I don't know. But I'm glad that it's there because it does help advance the ball and help, you know, reach that, at least the initial NDC, and think that we can go further.
Should I do this? I would love to add on to that. I agree with Kathy completely. The act of setting a target and having to achieve it is the first giant step that gets you along that way of progress. And, you know, I'll point to Bill Sisson's company at UTC. And I heard his boss talk when they talked first about their energy intensity and CO2 targets that they were going to hit. They didn't know how they were going to do it when they set the target. And they not only did it, but they exceeded it, and it added to the bottom line. And I think you're on the fourth set of goals now. So that should not be underestimated. And I think that in terms of the NDCs, the trick is going to be, you've got policymakers deciding what the rules are going to be there and how they're going to achieve it. And if they don't get information from the companies, from the advocates, from the people that have solutions and proven solutions on the energy efficiency side, they may do something that's more expensive, that's more extreme, that you know doesn't have the markets behind it, and it's going to be simply eating your oatmeal, and it's not going to have any brown sugar or raisins or anything else on it to sweeten it up. So I think that's the real trick. The target's there. If the countries can give as much flexibility as possible to businesses to meet those targets, and if we can show them ways that it can be done so that they can continue to grow their economies, continue to build prosperity and access to energy, and I think energy efficiency is the solution on all those, by the way. If we can show that, then we ought to be able to really put energy efficiency on steroids because the target's there and it's got to be met.
We have just a couple minutes, but I wanted to close this out and give AK and Elizabeth an opportunity to comment. I know USGBC has looked for the built environment at a lot of the NDCs, and then maybe AK, we can hear a little bit from you to close about how it's worked in India as a driving force for the green movement. So.
Thanks, Lisa. So one thing we noticed in looking at some of the NDCs that do have building efficiency included as part of the strategy, they tend to not have any numbers associated with it. So I think someone made the point earlier of the need for modeling and really the technology transfer, because we do have some of the NGOs and think tanks have developed some robust and useful models, and they're just need to get them in the right hands of the people who are working on plans at a national level to understand what the potential is in the building sector and sort of matching up different policy options, which how much emission reduction that will get them. So that's really not reflected as yet in what the countries are putting forward. And that made me interested in what you were talking about earlier, AK, and some of the numbers. It seems like you've done a lot to measure and quantify all of what you've achieved on carbon.
Yeah, I would like to tell for energy reduction across the metros, for all the metros, we have taken many actions. Number one, we are going for a campaign for green. That itself, when even our passengers or our employees, when from last 3 years, when we have gone for green revolution, everybody is so dedicated that the station of phase 1 has started, phase 2 has started saving energy with respect to our phase 1 stations, almost 10 to 15%. And over and above phase 2 and phase 1, by this platinum rating and rating system and massive use of LED lights, number one LED lights, then air conditioning, which is the major contributor of our taking of energy source, that, and then this regeneration is of course old. It is not very new. Regeneration we have started right from the beginning. But air conditioning, this thing, and green this thing rating system has given almost 15% saving over the last phase 2 stations. We are running three stations, underground stations. We are monitoring energy daily on hourly basis. Now we are monitoring, and we are finding that it is giving a saving of almost 15% over phase 2 stations. This means overall we are going to save heavy energy. And then phase 2 1 stations also we are going to convert with this rating system which we are making with USGBC. We are going to take lot of actions on those stations also, so that the energy saving of those stations also come at par with this. That is the one of the major action we have taken. And all the metros which we are giving consultancy, we are giving green consultancy also along with USGBC and presently with Green IG Indian Green Building Council, that they should use all those equipments which is available in the world with the latest technology. Like air conditioning, we have gone for thermal storage system, which is the very latest technology. Then we have got United Technologies carrier chiller with VFD drive technology. Then LED, of course, LED we have gone, and we have gone with all this with a security of almost 5 years guarantee we have taken from Philips India, that they will give, if any LED fails within this year, they will replace without any cost to us. So we are protecting our interest also, as well as we are saving the energy part of it. That is the leap we have taken in metros. Yeah.
And all the data helps put the meat on the bones and get those types of NDC commitments more solidified. So it's really terrific. So on behalf of the Business Council for Sustainable Energy and the U.S. Green Building Council and all the panelists, thank you for your time and the good discussion we had today. Look forward to following up over the next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
The Assistant Secretaries for the State Department.
Hi there.
I would love to get together and talk to you.
Oh, great. Oh, it's so nice to meet you. I'm sorry. I got your email number. I'm sorry about you.
Of course, we have a ton of utilities.
Gladstone.
Important to participate with us, but not in National Grid.
There was a lot of process.